Hey, what's up guys? It's been a while since I've done an update on this Tesla Model Y standard range, all-wheel drive, 4680. Actually, I don't know if it's called the standard range officially, but it is the all-wheel drive, lowest priced Model Y you can buy at the moment. This is the 4680 cells with the Giga castings and Austin build. So I just wanted to update everyone since I realized it's been a while since I've done a video. It's really been a drama-free car so far. So from that perspective, it's a little bit of out of sight, out of mind, just, use it like an appliance, and it's been super reliable, which is a great thing. So basically, cut this video short, so to speak. I have had no issues, and if you just want to fast forward, it's been totally problem free and end of video, right? But I did go through over the last 10,000 miles that I've driven it so far. I figured it's time to do an update and inform everyone who's looking out to purchase this car of any issues or any type of problems or pros and cons, basically, of my ownership experience so far. I did keep kind of a database or a log of certain issues, basically a list, of things that I wanted to sort of keep track of, things that were irritating to me, things that I liked, things that, I thought would be worth sharing. But from that perspective, to be honest, a lot of the items started just falling off this list, and it either became a nothing burger, or I figured out a solution, or it just, stayed on the list and became a bigger issue. So anyway, let's just go through it real quick. Oh, by the way, this is my office, and this is the box charger that I put our L2 level 2 charger in there, and I just charge it up like that. So let's first talk about build quality. Build quality on this car, actually, that was one of the things. One of the items I want to talk through with this video is part of the reason why I put this list together. Is I did have some preconceptions about this car. I'm not like a Tesla fanboy. I really love the company in terms of its forward-looking technology and some of the things they've achieved, but I just love cars in general. I am not like partial, and I'm not like a fanboy, sort of with the blinders on, etc. with the Tesla brand. So I just want to put that out there so it gives you an idea of where I'm coming from. The build quality, I've really kind of been surprised with the build quality. I've had no issues, no squeaks, no rattles. I did have a rattle and a squeak, which I may have mentioned in an earlier video with this car, and it had to do with the seats. And kind of as you go through different seating positions, it would squeak and rattle. But I found out that it was actually ended up being a piece of plastic down there that was just loose. So it has 4 clips, 2 on the top, 2 on the bottom. One of the 4 clips was just needed to be pushed back in. So I don't know if that came from the factory that way, or if it came loose or whatnot, but it became a nothing burger on that one as well. So the chassis is super firm. It means that you have less vibrations running through everything. So like, I don't really have squeaks or rattles or nothing of that sort. Really, my only minor complaint is probably just wind noise and tire noise as you drive the car. But I realize that that's our work van over there, and I once in a while take that thing out just to pick up supplies or whatever. And when I took that out, I realized how noisy that thing actually is. And you don't realize it, it's completely stock. There's no exhaust or anything weird like that. It's completely stock. But because this car is inherently just so quiet, you can't hear the drivetrain. You can barely even hear the hum of the electric motors. That, the tires, the little tiny air gaps, or any kind of wind turbulence as you go through, as you reach speeds of say 75 miles or faster. Then you start hearing kind of a tiny whistle in the air. So those things just become more obvious because everything else is so quiet. But even that, as you're being more conscious with other kind of regular cars, it's actually much quieter than that car, which is, that's a van, and it's still got full interior and it's completely stock. It just looks kind of old. But compared to a normal car that isn't, you know, a top-end Mercedes or Lexus or whatever, this is very, very, it's actually pretty quiet. So there's that. Charging. So here at work, I have obviously the L2 charger, but at home, I've resisted putting an L2 charger. I basically just charge with the 110. And from that perspective, it's been completely fine. I haven't even felt like I needed to put in a level 2 charger at home, which I was surprised about. I thought I would, you know, totally get sick of it or totally get sick of waiting. But in effect, you know, an overnight charge on this car gives you, what, 30 or 40 miles, maybe more. I haven't done the math, but it's been completely livable. So with the Rivian that we had, it just sucks so much juice. You know, it's probably half as efficient or just a little more than half as efficient as this car. A Model 3 is even more efficient. That it just sucks so much power. It took a very, very, very long time to get any kind of meaningful charge out of a level 110 volt charger. So given the supercharger network is so good with Tesla, like charging in general, even with this, you know, quote unquote lowest range version, I'm still getting, you know, 260, 270, 280 miles on a full charge, which, by the way, I've never gone I've never gone from 100% to zero in terms of range. You just kind of don't use electric cars that way. And when you become more, I mean, you really don't even go from full to empty in your own car. So you know, we really don't do that in these cars. So effectively 250 miles is a good ballpark for sort of long trips that I do. But from that case, 100%, I don't even think about charging. I just kind of, you know, plug it in when I'm at work, and I take it home and I plug it in there. And if I need to, the Tesla routing system will just route me to the nearest supercharger, and it's like 10-minute top up and I can make my way home. It's been really great. I really, really love and appreciate being able to charge this thing anywhere. And that's one reason why I'm still holding off, and I may not sell this in trade for the new R1S, the Rivian R1S that we've had. Actually, I could pick one up now off the R1S shop, but I've just been having such a good experience with this Tesla. I'm sort of waiting until the R1S has better, first of all, better autopilot, better adaptive cruise control, and ADAS in general just needs to be better. But I'm really waiting for the charging network to open up, the supercharger network to open up to other brands like Rivian. So that's my holdup right now. The next one on my list, the rough and uncomfortable ride that I had to get used to, because other cars like a luxury car or even the Rivian, for example, is my most recent comparison. It rides very, very, very well. So from a comfort standpoint, they ride really, really well. We took a water heater out, so this thing is like massive and like 40 years old and just needs to be taken out ASAP. Anyway, so this, as I mentioned in other videos, this has pretty firm suspension, but I made a mistake when I first explained how I felt this suspension would translate, and I said that it was crashy. Actually, that's completely wrong, and I admit it, it's not crashy at all. It's actually pretty controlled, and the damping, I think, is pretty sophisticated for a heavy vehicle like this, but it's also sporty. But in the small to medium bumps, it's firm. So it's really, I've said in previous videos before, it feels like a high-end sporty like BMW M or AMG GT or like an Audi RS line, even like a Porsche with a track pack or something. That's kind of what this feels like. But the reason why I don't complain is because the trade-off, like for example, going over speed bumps like that, or going over dips like we have here in California, you can go pretty fast, and it has good enough damping that it doesn't upset the car, and it will not like crash on itself. So it has plenty of high-speed damping that it will absorb that properly, like you feel like it should. So I actually take dips and speed bumps faster than I probably should. So very, like, after 10,000 miles, I've come to really appreciate the firm suspension in this car, because it's actually a pretty well tuned damper in my opinion. Hopefully it lasts. I hope it lasts, the next 50,000 miles that I plan to keep this thing, because um, I may be noticing some wear already in the damper, but it's really kind of it's too early to tell. So battery degradation. I've noticed no battery degradation. It's only 10,000 miles. It's kind of not fair. It's a little bit too early, but at least there's nothing in the Tesla battery monitoring system that can tell me if I'm losing any battery degradation or not. The range in the car is still 279. But if you are a Tesla owner, you know that you never really go by the range. You kind of use the percentage as a day-to-day driving aid. So yeah, I don't notice any battery degradation yet. That may change in the next 30 or 50,000 miles, but as of right now, nothing. The 4680 has been pretty solid. But let me just talk about charging on the 4680. The one negative about this car, the one negative that I've noticed is not or is not an issue with the 2170, the higher end, like the long range version or the performance version, is the charging speed on this car is slower. So say for example, how can I relate this in a non-geeky way? Um, but the geeky way is this car basically starts out at about like maybe 200 kilowatts, but it quickly dies down, like the charging rate. So it'll quickly go down to like 200 kilowatts, 190, 160, 150, all the way down to like 100. Then it'll sort of stabilize after 50%. It'll stabilize at like 70 to 50 kilowatts, which is like half the speed, half the amount of juice that a 2170 cell or the other higher models take. I don't know if that's to increase the longevity of the 4680s, because this is kind of an experiment, right? Like this is Tesla's first 4680 cell car. I don't know if that's purposefully throttled down that way, or is Tesla just really throttling it down because this is their base model? They want people to like, buy the more expensive one. I don't know. Only time will tell on that one. So that's sort of been the one minor thing, but it really, like I said earlier, charging has been like a nothing burger for me, because that's really the difference of charging for 5 minutes at a supercharger or 10 minutes at a supercharger. From that respect, it's really become like a non-issue. For me to go to the restroom at a supercharger, I need 10 minutes anyway. Or if I really need a deep charge at a supercharger, I'm already gonna be there for like 20 minutes or more. So then, just send emails or watch YouTube or whatever. So I'll be honest, it's a non-issue. And there are still many EVs out there that will charge at like their fastest rate of charge is what this one does. So I just want to put that out there. By the way, 200 and let's just call it 280 miles of range is like a mid-tier to an upper tier bracket or option level for like one of the Hyundais, right? So even though this is the lowest range Model Y you can buy, it's still, when you compare it to others like a Ford or some of the other ones, it's already pretty darn high. So I just want to keep that in mind, that a lot of Tesla shoppers may not be cross shopping with others, but if you do cross shop this with other EVs, this one is actually the lowest range. The lowest range is actually pretty decent. So one of the things I wasn't sure about when I bought this was, at the time I could only spec the 4680 with these 20-inch induction wheels. So by the way, no matter what I do, I've already scraped like 3 of the 4, and it's just because I'm an idiot and I'm not very careful. I think this is the only one that doesn't have a scrape, and I've already rotated them once. I rotated them at around 8,000 miles. And the rears do wear out faster than the fronts, because I think the rears do the majority of the regenerative braking, and I'll explain why in a second. But these low profile tires, they're actually fairly comfortable. I thought that I would want the 19s because of additional tire height, but in essence I haven't really been, you know, too bothered by this. So I do think that once these things fully wear out, and I don't know, they might be already like 40% down or 35% down, so I think realistically these will probably last me 30 to 35, maybe at most 40,000 miles. I'll probably try to find a takeoff, you know, 19 inch and try the standard 19 inch with the hubcaps. Time will tell. I'm not really sure. So that was sort of a surprise for me that I actually like these as much as I do. One more thing, I went into a Tesla thinking that the steering was a little bit too quick, meaning the ratio is too, might have been too twitchy, because this has a very, very fast steering rack, meaning pardon me, when you say fast steering rack, then the ratio, so as you turn this 1 degree, it turns the wheel pretty aggressively, right? So that's what I mean by a fast ratio. I thought it would be too fast and kind of twitchy and like not comfortable and sort of frantic, but it's actually not. I found it to be fast, but it matches the personality of the car, which is kind of sporty. So I think Tesla did a good job there. I do think they make it a certain like speed or ratio is probably because of autopilot. They need autopilot to react quickly. That's my guess. I'm not sure if that's true. So one thing I did have to do was I did have to take this into service once. And the reason for that, and I'll tell you about my service experience in a second. The reason why I had to take it into service was because, and I may have mentioned this in a previous video, was because, by the way, I take my mountain bike in here. That's why it's always a big mess. This seal right here needed to be changed because when it was raining a lot here in Southern California, there would be like a small puddle of water right in here, which is behind the seal. And I don't know if it like came in from up here or from somewhere or from whatever. So there was actually a recall for this, and so they swapped it into the new seal. And I noticed one other good side effect to getting the new seal. Somehow, when I was driving this car before I had the new seals put in, there was like a very, very low resonance within the cabin of the car. So it was this like low bassy kind of boom, 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 boom sound, where probably in the 80 to 120 hertz range, and where you can't necessarily hear it as much, but you can definitely feel it like in your brain and eardrums, and it's kind of like this droning effect. And it gave me like a headache that I didn't really know where it was coming from. And I'm just dumb, and I'm hypersensitive to stuff like that. But when they put in the new seal, it must have sealed it pretty well, or sealed it better, whereby it got rid of that. I don't notice it at all. So that was interesting, an interesting benefit. By the way, my service experience was totally great. No complaints. I went into the app, put in my problem, sent, like, the app takes pictures, so I put in pictures about like what the issue was. I showed them there's water, you know, in that area. And so they scheduled me, like, I think it was like 3 or 4 days later, which I had to actually push back because I needed to find a time frame that worked for me. And they gave me a Model 3 loaner, and it was, you know, I was in and out, and it was kind of like a no big deal thing. It was great, no issues at all. And that brings up a good point. When I had the loaner that they gave me had white interior, and I actually did a video on that Model 3 just as a comparison, but that one had the white interior. So let me jump in here. I am so glad that I did not get the white interior. Let me turn you off for a second. So the white interior is actually white in several places, not just the seats, right? And what I realized very quickly with driving that car with the white interior, because I really wanted white. I was actually very torn about, should I get white, should I get black? But given that I'm a mess, you know, there's like dirt and stuff back there, I knew that white would be hard to maintain. as compared to black. But the one big negative that I did not expect with the white was in here it's glary. Like the light bounces off the white surface everywhere. And it's almost like I needed to wear sunglasses while I was driving that car, even when it wasn't like, blazing sunny outside. So that to me is a little bit uncomfortable. I don't know. Maybe my eyes are just too sensitive. I'm not sure. But because of just that reason alone, I'm so glad I did not get white. So if your eyes are sensitive to glare, maybe the white is not a good option for you. It is really pretty though. It is really pretty. By the way, something that I've learned is when you're using this, you want to use the percentage and don't really go by the mileage. If you go by the mileage, it will be always overestimating what the mileage you can get out of the car. So if it's showing 200, you'll probably really only get like 190 or 185 or something. So don't trust that. Let's see what else. Oh, let's talk about regen. So regen on this car was kind of a I wouldn't say a bummer, but I was expecting more from the regen abilities of this car. Yes, the throttle pedal tuning and the brake tuning and sort of the driving dynamics of those pedals are pretty good with Tesla. It's actually tuned pretty well. But I was hoping for much more regen. So as I have, I've been driving EVs since 2015, 2013 actually. And every time I've had those EVs, I've always, well, like, the more I became accustomed to driving an EV, the more regen I wanted, right? So the weird thing about this, and by the way, Rivian has the best regen tuning out there I've ever experienced. It's fantastic. But the thing with this one is even though it's a four-wheel drive, I had thought, you know what? Because it has two motors and it has a drivetrain on each axle, that I thought regen would be really strong, right? I was like, okay, great. The regen will be good. That's not something I would think about. It's going to be great. But because the front motor is an inductive magnet and the rear motor is a permanent magnet, when you're doing regen, you actually, for the front to be regenerative, you have to feed it some current. Even compared to the back, because it's a permanent magnet, it's always, you don't need to feed it any extra current. But given Tesla's kind of genius, most of the time this front is actually like a free floating, not energized motor. So it really operates most of the time as a rear wheel drive, which is why I'm using up more rear tire than I am using up front tire tread. So what I think is happening, well, I should explain what really is the problem I have with the regen. So the regen with this car, it's pretty strong up until maybe like 15 miles an hour and lower. So as you lift off the gas pedal and you're one pedal driving, regen is strong, but you feel it sort of taper off at the end. And when you feel it taper off at the end, it becomes harder to judge where the stoplight is or where the stop sign is and how far you want to stop. So from that perspective, it's kind of like towards the end of your stop after 15 miles an hour below, the regen strength decreases. So that's the part where it actually, when you're at normal speed, like say higher speed, from freeway speed all the way down to near stoplight speed, you have all four of the wheels providing regenerative energy, regenerative braking back to the battery, right? Regenerative charging. But as you get closer to that stoplight, like maybe 15 miles an hour below, or maybe say call it 30 feet before your stop, you lose. It's only the rears that are doing the regen, so you lose some of that power, because in order for the regen to be a regen on a inductive motor, you have to feed it current, and it actually stops getting fed current. It actually stops working once you get to lower speeds. Like, that's just kind of how the technology works, is my understanding, which makes complete sense to me. So that was a little bit of a bummer, and it's sort of why I used to wonder, like, what's going on with the regen? Why is it that I'm most of the time having such a hard time predicting when to, predicting when to gauge my stopping distances. And I think that's really the primary reason, which no one really talks about in the Tesla world. But I wish it was. I knowing the trade-off, meaning like to make that better, you would need 4 permanent magnets, or I just say you need permanent magnet motor on both sides. You would need 2 permanent magnets instead of just 1. And the benefits of the inductive motor in the front outweighs the benefits of having them both, like, that kind of thing. So I'm fine with that. Tesla navigation. The Tesla navigation I used to be a little bit annoyed with, and this is my gripe with Tesla not having Android Auto or Apple CarPlay in their kind of IT ecosystem. I personally think that having Android Auto in the car is a much better driving experience, at least for me. But I also can accept that it's just what I'm used to. Um, but in reality, I still do think that Waze, as far as a mapping software, is just just slightly better than Tesla's, even though Tesla has all the features of, um, like selecting a charger that's coming up if you need it, and all the route planning stuff and the preconditioning stuff. Like Tesla does all that for you within their ecosystem. Those are the benefits, but it doesn't do as good of a job rerouting if there's an accident. So many times if I need to get somewhere in a timely manner and I can't afford to be late, I need to get there like in the shortest amount of time possible, I will always have Waze running in parallel with the Tesla mapping app. Now, I did find a setting. So there is a setting in the navigation system. I don't want to show it to you guys now, otherwise this video would be so long, longer than it already is. But there's a setting in the navigation that says reroute if you're gonna save 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it is. And if you put that to the lowest setting, I think the lowest is 1 minute. So anytime the system sees that you could save 1 minute, it'll reroute you, right? So some people don't like rerouting because it's, like irritating or it's just too much mess or whatever. But Waze is by default trying to find the fastest possible route for you to your destination, which I really like, especially living in LA and traffic being as crappy as it is. So I found that setting, and I think it defaults to 5 minutes or 10 minutes in the Tesla. But as soon as I put it to 1 minute, then any given route that you put in is actually either mostly always the same as the Waze route or pretty darn close to the Waze route. So I found that to be my sort of saving grace for the Tesla navigation system. So make sure you guys do that if that's the thing. Turning radius. So turning radius on this car, it's kind of average to not so great. I don't know why. I just think it's because, to make turning radius as big as possible, then you would minimize essentially this space in between. You'd have to make the front like much smaller. So it's a good compromise. But in many cases, I do have to do like a 3-point turn. So just keep that in mind if turning radius is an issue for you guys. It's just kind of average. I want to mention about the phone key. So this car, when you walk close to it, then obviously you don't need to press a button to unlock. You don't need to hear like, your old Viper alarm chirping, whatever. It just all does it through your Bluetooth on the mobile phone. It works really, really well. And the reason why I say that is because I used to wonder, I'm like, oh, if I walk away, do I know if the car is closed? Like, will that be like, mental overhead that I'm not going to want to even think about? And in reality, it's a nothing burger. When you walk away, if you walk away like 5 feet, maybe 10 feet, then there's a setting which allows the car to just kind of just tap the horn and let you know that, hey, it's locking itself. And there's never been an issue with the Bluetooth acting weird. Like if I'm washing the car, closely, like the Rivian used to like turn the lock and unlock, lock and unlock, lock and unlock, and it was sort of a pain. And the Rivian, I'd have to do like a crazy rain dance just so that the car would read my phone. It was a mess. So really, the Bluetooth key for this car works really well. And it's really nothing. It's really not a thing you think about until you have a car where it does not work well. So I appreciate that with Tesla. They really got that right. There's also like other cool things about this car that I've come to appreciate. Like when Tesla did their last update from a few update cycles ago, they have auto canceling signal lamps. So all you have to do is tap the signal and it will, blink right or blink left, depending where you want to go, obviously. But it auto cancels. So it knows when you've completed the turn, it knows when you've completed the lane change, and it's like right, and it works well 95% of the time. The only time it kind of gets a little tricky is if you want to change 2 lanes at a time, then you have to make it pretty deliberate that you're changing 2 lanes at a time. But if you change into 1 lane and you straighten out for a half a second and you change it to the second lane again, then it turns off and you've got to do the clicker twice. But just these things that no other car company can really do, like Tesla just has it and they push it out as an update, like nothing. It's just so good. Autopilot. Let's talk about Autopilot real quick, because that was one of the main reasons why I bought this car and one of the main reasons why I'm probably going to keep this for a while. Autopilot, I did not pay for any extra Autopilot. The Autopilot version and the service level and the feature level of Autopilot is what comes stock on any Tesla that you buy. I didn't buy the navigate on Autopilot extra, even the full self-driving, blah blah blah. I might try those one of these days, because I've been following the videos online and they seem to be getting much better. But I'm not ready to spend like $300 a month or the 15,000 or whatever it is on top of the car. And it doesn't even go with the owner. I really think it should go with the owner and not stay with the car. But I haven't tried those yet. But just regular Autopilot. So this car does regular Autopilot probably better than anything I've tried out there. The only maybe minor gripe that I have with Autopilot is it doesn't lane center as well. So it does have a tendency to kind of bounce around just a little bit, but not even that so much. But if you're coming into a turn, let's say a right-hand turn, then it will it kind of makes me somewhat uneasy, especially if the lane is narrow or if it has cones on one side. It will come really close to those cones. And I feel like it should be a little bit more comfortable from that sense, and it isn't. Like, it pushes the boundaries a little bit too far. And for the most part, like, Tesla really dumbs down their feature set that they give you with this. Like, for example, on some cars, even with the Open Pilot unit, which runs off a cell phone that I had, that unit, when you change lanes and you hit the blinker, it will actually change lanes for you, right? But with Tesla, that's an extra feature. You got to pay extra money for that, and all that kind of nickel and diming stuff that they're trying to do with the Autopilot. But in general, just for basic, like ADAS, adaptive driving, it is great. Like, it's probably the best out there, I think. So pretty happy with that. It does phantom brake still once in a while, depending on the update. Some updates never phantom brake on me. Some updates, like this most recent one, sort of phantom brakes lightly for me, like a couple times. Just this current update, which was done I don't know, 2 weeks ago or something. So that's kind of comes and goes. The car has I'm probably not going to talk about this too much, even though I have it on my list. But there are those adaptive cruise control nannies where if you're not staring at the road, it will bug you and turn off. Tesla's nannies are interesting. I think it's safe from a driver safety point of view, but you know what? I'll just let you guys figure that out, and you guys can figure out if those nannies are good for you or not. Oh, by the way, it turns off completely when you lane change, unless you buy that navigate on Autopilot, whatever. So one more thing, and I'm down to my last couple points here. The EV range software tools that the Tesla gives you really makes route planning so much better and really a no-brainer. So sorry about this other car here. It's very loud with an exhaust and everything. But the route planning that Tesla has in their system, in kind of the Tesla ecosystem, is is really pretty darn good, and it helps with range anxiety, which I have zero of, by the way. It's just really good, and I haven't been in a car that has that level of range planning or route planning. So, oh, the last thing I want to talk about, very minor, but let's talk about the seats. So 10,000 miles, right, with these seats, and they've been very comfortable except for one thing. So this is a non-adjustable headrest, so it's kind of a little bit too forward facing. So this is too deep, so which means your back sinks into this, but this headrest points forward a little bit too much. So for example, my wife, she almost needs a pillow here to like balance out her head, or she needs to like recline this really far back and tilt her head forwards, because this is a little bit too forward facing for her, and it's like non-adjustable, you can't move it. So that's kind of dumb. Then I hope they find a way to hopefully fix that at some point. But anyway, that is oh, if you guys want and you find it, you think it would be useful, I can do a accessory, like my top 5 favorite accessories or whatever. So for example, I got this upper moonroof or whatever cover, and it creates like this air insulation for when it's really hot here in SoCal. That has been a godsend. Like, it's just been so good. And so I can take it off in the winter, so that you know actually want that light in the winter, but in the summer there's so much light outside that I don't want that extra heat coming in the cabin, and it's really helped. So just stuff like that. If you guys want to hear more about the accessories, like floor mats, or even this little display, or any of the other, you know, that little tray over there, or even the rubber mats that I have in the back there, then by all means just holler and I can do another video of just that. All right, so this video has gone far too long, but 10,000 miles on this car, and so far it's been happy days. Have a good one. Take care. Bye.